What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I've got for you a very exciting video, one going to be a full-on build guide for a $400 gaming PC that not only looks amazing but also performs just as well, but also my official submission to a challenge with me and 3 other tech YouTubers to build up a $400 gaming PC. May the best win. Let's go. So the first thing that came to mind when trying to edge out the most performance possible against my competition was to pick up a pre-built workstation PC that I can find mostly containing all the parts I needed and slap it into a gaming PC case. And that is exactly what I did. I picked up this HP workstation from eBay containing nearly all I needed, minus just a hard drive and GPU, for just $122.50. And when I say it contained all I really needed, it really did. It came with all the core components, a few to highlight being a 6-core 12-threaded CPU, 16 gigs of memory, and a 600-watt power supply to feed a power-hungry GPU. The only thing really left to do was to tear out all those components that came inside the HP workstation and get it into a suitable gaming case so I could add some aesthetically pleasing features to my build. So with that workstation PC, I had pretty much all the components already on hand, minus a few things, but let's talk about each individual part in the build and their function and where I got them from and how much I paid for. Starting off with the motherboard, this obviously came included with the complete workstation I bought from eBay, but some key features here is the socket, which supports a 6-core 12-threaded CPU, quad-channel memory, and the motherboard is a full-size standard ATX, which should allow for a simple case swap. But that also comes with a few little caveats that we'll get into when it comes to swapping this motherboard into this gaming case. So onto the CPU, which had I done a little more research, I would have been able to find a slightly better one if I had narrowed in on 2 different build versions of this HP 420 workstation. Yes, unfortunately, something I didn't find out till after the fact, that I bought a slightly older HP 420 workstation, which there were 2 different models of, one supporting the CPU that I got, the E5 1650, but there is a later version that supports the better CPU, which is the E5 1650 V2. So a little bit of IPC performance left on the table. Nonetheless, I think the CPU will do just fine handling what I throw at it with 6 cores and 12 threads, a base clock of 3.2 and a max boost of 3.9 gigahertz. To keep this chip cool, I'm just using the standard OEM CPU cooler that the system came with. This is actually quite a beefy cooler for the system. It's not your typical dinky little OEM cooler that you find in other types of office PCs. It will do just fine and leave me with no issues that I would normally run into if I'm trying to use some other type of aftermarket cooler on this motherboard. Onto the memory, not a terrible amount to talk about here. We've got DDR3 4x4 gigs to make a total of 16 gigs of RAM, but also to operate in quad channel operation, which I hoped would give me a slight little edge of performance. Then on to storage, which this system did not come with, which I had to go separately buy, but that was of no real problem. Took to Amazon real quick and snagged up a drive for $15.99. And what we have here is a simple 2.5-inch drive from Silicon Power. This drive is a typical drive I usually go with when dealing with these OEM type builds. Unfortunately, the system is a bit dated for NVMe. However, this gets the job done perfectly well and within budget. I guess the only thing I kind of regret with the system is it's only 256 gigs, which is pretty low for today's standards. However, gets the job done in terms of a boot drive, and you can always go back and add a lot more storage. This PC case obviously has plenty of space for it. Okay, so on to the part that is going to evolve this workstation into a gaming PC, and that be the GPU. This part I did have to do a fair amount of part hunting for. I did find it here in my local used markets, which did help me in shipping costs, which is factored into the cost of the total build, but also did find a pretty good part. The reason I did go with this card, obviously it was a quick, cheap, and local buy, but I need to ensure it was a card that also used all PCIe lanes, all 16X of them, because some cheap modern ones don't use all full 16X lanes, but also being an 8 gig card to have tons of headroom for performance. And funny enough, actually the listing for this card was actually a 2070 Super, which I thought was a banger of a deal. Come to find out, it's actually only a 2070. The seller, I think, really didn't know that and honestly thought it was a 2070 Super. Regardless, $180 for this GPU, I'd say is a really good deal. So to power everything up, this was yet another part I stripped from the HP system, a 600-watt power supply, which should be more than plenty of juice for this build. However, that does not come without caveats. One being that the PSU only has 2x6-pin PCIe cables, meaning I had to buy an adapter for one to convert it to an 8-pin because my GPU is a 6+8 pin connection. I wouldn't necessarily recommend using adapters, however, because we're only adapting one of the cables from a 6 to an 8. We've got plenty of juice in the power supply, and we're not adapting something off like a SATA power cable. I'd say, and I feel like this is still perfectly fine. Oh, but the caveats keep rolling in with this power supply. So not only did I have to adapt the GPU cable, but the EPS power is about this long. So we've got an issue. Though the EPS power cable length is short, I think I found my saving grace being this case I got from Newegg for $59.97, the Rosewell Prism S500. And where I'm going with that is this case has a top mount power supply just like it comes with the HP Workstation, so I should be in the clear for the length of the run of the power supply cable. But aside from choosing this case just because of the power supply mounting location, it is a pretty sweet case. I've built in it before. It supports full-size ATX motherboards and includes some RGB fans I felt would give me that little bit of aesthetic bump in the aesthetics department. Well, the struggles don't quite necessarily end. I found out the hard way, and I thought I'd just be able to slap this PSU right up in here. Well, it turns out it's way too big and I couldn't just easily slide it in like I normally would. So with the power supply dimensions just ever so slightly larger than the actual cutout for the case, luckily though I thought of a pretty quick solution to drill out the rivets towards the backside of the case that would allow me enough room to slightly pry the case apart and slide in the power supply. That worked actually perfectly. I just put some screws back in where the rivets once were and mission accomplished. Oh, but I had lots more fun. Well, we got the power supply in, which I thought was mission accomplished, but we still have an issue with the EPS power cable. The cable punch outs in the case are more designed for non-OEM motherboards, meaning, well, we had an issue with being able to run that cable. So, back to some more power tools to solve some more problems. This meant I had to make a small cut in the case with my Dremel to free space up so I could connect the short power cable to the motherboard. This actually wasn't all that bad. I just had to make about a small 1-inch cut in the body of the case and smooth it out so I don't cut into the power supply cables when trying to make that run. Another mission accomplished. Oh, but wait, there's more caveats. This is getting fun. Now this actually isn't a big deal and I could have just ignored this one, but I wanted to, add a little extra to my build to really set it over the top. So what you are seeing here is an IO shield that I crafted myself. I'm not terribly proud of my work, although I don't think it looks all that terribly bad. It could look better, but I think it does look a whole lot better than not having an IO shield at all, which the HP Workstation does not come with a removable one. So all in all, my total spend on this PC came in at $395.01 to get you what you see here, but I think we've talked quite a bit about how I built it and what I chose to do. Let's see how well it does. Well, I think it goes without mention, if you saw those benchmarks, this thing performs just as well as it looks. So if you made it to the end of this video, thank you very much, but some very important announcements I want to share with you guys. Firstly, make sure you go on over to the other tech YouTubers that I collabed with to make this build video. They got some pretty awesome looking builds, and that being Pinky Tech, The Net Guy, and Nerd on a Budget. Secondly, I'm getting together with those 3 YouTubers this Thursday evening to battle it out and see who's got the best gaming skills along with their gaming PC, so make sure you check that out. I'll be blasting that out on my socials as well as they will be. And lastly, I want to thank Zach's Tech Turf and Jawa for helping out with this collaboration. Zach put up the aesthetic judging poll and helped us get in touch with Jawa to give you some exclusive promo codes on the listings of these PCs that are going to be up for sale on Jawa. So if you want a chance to get a great gaming PC built by us YouTubers, then make sure you stay tuned to the listings on Jawa, because these will be up as soon as the stream is over. Thanks for tuning into this one though, guys. I appreciate your time, and I'll catch you in the next one. Oh, and I absolutely have to mention my 9-year-old daughter, who built me a nice little logo to attach to my PC. Now, it is complete.